It is an iPad, and it is good. Apple has named it simply iPad, but we have to refer to it as iPad 2017, or iPad 5th generation, or new iPad 9.7 because the world is a broken place. I am just going to call it the iPad. I am also in the enviable place of reviewing a gadget about which you already know everything there is to know because it is, as I said, an iPad. I don't have to delve into complicated questions about the future of computing or weird hinges or software limitations. But of course there are details to consider within each of those bullet points. I will go through them point by point since I just spent a week with the new iPad. After I do, you will discover that those are the main points and go on with your life until you need to buy an iPad to do iPad things, at which point you will buy this iPad. When I simply say it is an iPad, reasonable people know exactly what I mean. They know that it is a thin, fast tablet with a good screen, and it has a lot of apps so that you can do iPad things. And with this iPad, we do not need to quibble about whether or not iPad things consist of doing real work or whether or not the iPad is just a consumption device. The iPad Pro might justify such ruminations, but this new iPad causes no angst. The answers to those questions are different for everybody, but for most people, they know what they want out of an iPad because they have been doing their iPad things for years, often on the same iPad for all those years. This particular take on the iPad is interesting to gadget nerds because it is a one-step forward, one-step back iPad, so let's address that. At the end of which you will conclude that this is an iPad, because it is indeed an iPad. It replaces the iPad Air 2, but it essentially has the same body and 9.7-inch screen as the original iPad Air. That means it's slightly thicker than the iPad Air 2, but not enough for anybody to really notice or care. It has the same largish bezel around the screen, sturdy aluminum back, and magnets to hold smart covers. It does not support the Apple Pencil, nor does it have a smart connector for attaching keyboards, two features I wish it had, but it does not because it is not an iPad Pro. Those are two of the features that Apple uses to separate the iPad Pro from the regular iPad. This is not an iPad Pro. It is an iPad. Every iPad is defined by its screen, and the screen on this iPad is very good. It is a Retina display with a resolution of 2048 by 1536 pixels. It does not have the fancy True Tone display that the iPad Pro does, nor does it have some of the things that made the screen on the iPad Air 2 so nice, lamination and anti-reflectivity. If you look closely, you will see that the screen on the iPad sits a little further from the front glass than it does on the Air 2 because the two parts are not bonded. This might make repairs cheaper, but it also makes the screen less nice. It is also a little more reflective than the Air 2, so it's a little less nice to use outside in bright sunlight. But these are quibbles. This is an iPad, which means the screen is quite nice, and unless you are a pixel pedant you will find little to complain about. Apple has said that the screen is brighter than the iPad Air 2, but I can't really tell the difference. The other notable thing about this iPad is that it has a new processor, Apple's A9 chip. That means it's significantly faster than older iPads, but not necessarily significantly faster than the iPad Air 2. It's not as fast as the iPad Pro. But you use the iPad to browse the web and play Sudoku and watch some movies in bed, so these processor speeds shouldn't really affect your purchasing decisions. It is an iPad, and iPads are fast enough to do iPad things. I do wish that Apple had found a way to fit 4 speakers into this iPad like it did with the iPad Pro. Instead there are just 2 on the bottom, or on the side, depending how you hold it. Fundamentally, what I am trying to tell you is that this is an iPad. You trust that iPads are decent tablets and that they have a basic level of quality, speed, and functionality. The cost for the base model iPad is $329, with 32 GB of storage and Wi-Fi. You can pay $100 extra to get 128 GB of storage, and $130 more to get LTE. Choosing to spend that extra money is between you and your checking account, But I will note that if you're in the business of getting upsold, then maybe you should really consider the 9.7-inch iPad Pro. It is slightly more likely to do more than the usual iPad things most people want iPads for.